you.
So we're joined from Savannah, Georgia, for our first guest of the fourth 9 weeks. My friend, Dr. Theoria Cason, founder of Theoria and Praxis. Praxis, such a hard word to say. We thank you so much for taking some time for us. I've got a room full here with me at Velma Jackson High School. We're recording this for all of our friends in Madison County Schools,
Absolutely.
Ridgeland High School, Germantown High School, Madison Central High School, the Academic Options Center, and our YouTube channel. So thank you so much for fitting us in your schedule today.
Of course, thank you for having me. And like I mentioned, it is a pleasure to have the opportunity to speak to young people because there were people who took time to invest in me when I was their age and perhaps in similar predicaments. And so I understand the value of giving back.
Now, obviously, we want to talk about your business and why what you have as a business and what you do is so important to entrepreneurs. But
Mhm.
just give us a little background. You are originally from North Carolina, went to UNC Charlotte,
I did.
um, and also went to Western Illinois, in
Mhm.
Macomb, Illinois, middle of freaking nowhere. So,
Mhm.
so just talk about that experience, why you chose UNC Charlotte, how you got there, and then your experience at WIU because you went from a very large urban university to a middle of nowhere university.
Yes, yes, yes. So I chose UNC Charlotte specifically because of their onboarding process. So I was one of those students that
Oh, cool.
only applied to one university in my home state, and that was UNC Charlotte. I was looking
Wow.
to get away and have new experiences, just because that was just the way my mom groomed me and raised me to be brave and courageous and to go out and explore the world. She said, "You can always come home." So you don't have to stay where you're from now when you have this opportunity to go out and learn and meet other people. And in the process of going through my acceptance letters, like UNC Charlotte's customer service approach to onboarding new students was so fantastic that they reassured many of my concerns as a first generation college student who's applying for
Wow.
financial aid. And they made it so easy for me to go through the financial aid process to understand what I was being asked to pay for. And at that point, my EFC code was zero. I'm pretty sure financial aid probably still uses that. So for those of you who are thinking of going to school, EFC code means expected family contribution. And so since my EFC code was zero, that meant I needed a lot of support in order to be able to successfully matriculate into college because it just wasn't within my mom's capacity financially
Yeah.
to do so as a single mother. And they made sure that I had a smooth transition not only in terms of my financial aid, but in terms of my housing. And I was connected to mentors and support programs that helped me transition as a first generation college student. And to give you a fun fact, one of my undergraduate mentors was the vice chancellor of student affairs at that time, and he and I still talk. I recently released a
Wow.
book in December, and I sent him a text
Yeah.
message to say, "Hey, Chuck, just want to let you know here is my third book that I just recently released, and I want to give you visibility." And he not only followed up when I messaged him in December, he texted me the day that I got back from South Africa, which was Thursday of last week, and said, "Hey, I just want to let you know I bought your book, I read your book, and I continue to be proud of you. And I'm so honored to be a part of your story."
That's awesome. And we'll definitely talk about the book here as we go along. So you went to UNC Charlotte, then you got a master's
I do.
at WIU, and then you got a doctorate. So just take us through that process because I hear kids all the time about they want to have the titles. And look, right now in America, black women are the leaders in titles, and it's actually not close.
Yeah.
If you look at these degrees that are being earned, and rightfully so.
Yeah.
So just talk about that process and what it took and why you chose those programs.
Sure, sure. Well, I mentioned Chuck. That's a good segue into how I ended up at Western Illinois University because what he did for me as one of my mentors, of which I had many at UNC Charlotte, was to let me know that there was a career path that I was not previously
Wow.
aware
Love
of,
it.
which was going into higher education. So because he was a student affairs professional and one at the one of the highest levels within the university, he and other people within student affairs recognized that there were some of us as student leaders who might be good in the field. And they created like essentially like a special little seminar to kind of shoulder tap us to say, hey, we think, you might be good at going into the field of student affairs, and you might not be aware that there's a curriculum that goes along with this work, but here are some really great academic programs that you might want to consider since you're already planning to go on to get your master's degree. My undergraduate degree is in psychology, so my original plan was to get my master's in psychology, but because of their guidance and mentorship, I realized the better fit for me was actually to go into student affairs. And so they presented me with some options of schools to look into, but they also encouraged me to go out and to interview. So I was groomed and coached and ushered into something called the Oshkosh Placement Exchange, which is an opportunity for aspiring graduate students to interview with faculty members and potential employers. So to get like a graduate
Wow.
assistantship to help pay
Yeah.
for the cost
Oh,
of
yeah.
grad school, you can become like a resident graduate advisor, or you can become someone that works in student athletics if you're interested in working in athletics, or if you like student activities, you can be a graduate advisor to work in the student union where all of the activities and clubs and programs are. And so I was supported to go interview with a variety of universities, their faculty, and their graduate assistants, directors, so I could see where I might get the best option in terms of academic support and financial support for that transition. And it was in the process of interviewing at the placement exchange in the middle of nowhere, Wisconsin, that I met a graduate student who said, hey, you should consider WIU, because WIU wasn't on my list. But he was a student that was a part of their recruitment team. And so I did. And so I met with the faculty member there, Dr. Tracy Davis, and we had a fantastic rapport in terms of our conversations around my experiences as an undergraduate student, which was not perfect. I'll tell your students something that I told the young lady that I was mentoring in South Africa. You don't have to be perfect, but you don't get to quit. It's about progress over perfection. So I was
There you
not
go.
a
Love
perfect
it.
student in undergrad. I had challenges academically. I had challenges adjusting, even with all of that support. But because of that support and because of that encouragement, they said, Theoria, we believe in you. You can bring up your grades, you can bring up your GPA, and you can continue to move towards your path of getting your master's degree. And I was very transparent with Tracy about some of the challenges that impacted me during my undergraduate career, but I also was very transparent about my tenacity to move forward. And that faculty member vouched for my academic aptitude because he understood that I was committed, and it was also demonstrated in my record. Like I had challenges early in undergrad, but I turned things around towards the end. And I was also extended some offers to be a graduate resident advisor. And I'm communicating that as a path because, from an economic perspective, that
Absolutely.
that path in particular meant that as a graduate resident advisor, I had on-campus housing. So I didn't have to worry about where I would live during graduate school because living where I worked would be part of my assistantship process.
Yeah, absolutely.
And a sneaky thing about going into residence life, specifically in higher education, is that you get all kinds of training to do all types of things, training, facilitation skills, conflict mediation, crisis response are all skills that I began developing in grad school that has served me well in my career as a student affairs professional, in my career as a corporate executive, and in my business as an entrepreneur. But developing all of those skills all culminated through my career path into and through higher education.
Yeah, such a great point because I was actually a graduate assistant as well at
Mhm.
LSU.
Mhm.
And, I have kids all the time. I'm all about, giving kids options. They say, I want to go to LSU like you did. Well, out of state tuition at LSU is not exactly cheap. And that graduate assistantship, also in a student affairs and campus rec, was a big deal for me, I probably would not have been able to go to LSU without that.
Hmm.
Again, it's all about finding opportunity and finding ways to do it. Now, you spent after that, you spent some time, a lot of years working at Cornell University there in New York, and you saw some things that you saw some problems that were in the corporate world.
Yep.
You saw some HR things that you thought that you could help with, and it led to you starting your business, Theoria in Praxis, which
Correct.
does amazing work consulting from the big to the small when it comes to HR practices. And like I said, it's so cool that we're talking about this today because that's their assignment
Yeah.
with their own business concepts, coming up with job descriptions that make sense and
Mhm.
that are consistent, coming up with how to hire the right people for a job, not, I know when you're 16, 17 years old, you just want to hire your friends,
Mhm.
but that's not the way a successful business is run. And then asking the right questions, having a diverse workforce. And diversity is not what always, I know we agree on this. Diversity is not what people always think. It's not always the color of people's skin or people's gender. There is so much more to it. And I know you talk about that in your book as well. So just give us a little background on how Theory and Practice was started and what you guys do and why it's so important for business owners to have these things in place.
Yeah, so starting my business actually emerged very organically because I made a decision in 2020 to reevaluate my career paths. I achieved a lot of success. I had a number of wonderful opportunities while I worked at Cornell, but I was also reevaluating how I wanted to continue in terms of my connection and engagement with fostering growth and people development within the workplace. And so many things were changing during the context of the pandemic in terms of our ways of working. It's simply, if for no other obvious reason, that we went from primarily in-person ways of working to online, right? And so
There
it
you
just
go.
a time to like just reevaluate this construct of things being fixed in terms of the way it has to be. And I got myself a career coach. And so this is something else I'd like to offer in terms of a commitment to continue learning and growth and professional development. At that point in my career, I already had a master's degree and a number of certifications. And I had earned my doctorate. I completed my doctorate while working full time. So I was Dr. Theoria Cason by 2020, but I still understood that even with the title and even with the experience, there's still opportunities to continue to learn and grow,
Absolutely.
and to receive feedback from people who have visibility into where I might have talents that I don't see as a talent, or where I might have additional opportunities to grow and invest in the growth of a skill set. And so my career coach was helping me figure out how to pivot from higher education into the corporate world. I was confident in the transferability of my skills, but what I knew was missing was my ability to effectively convince a corporation that the skills I'd been developing in higher education would transfer into a new industry. I needed
There
to
you
learn
go.
corporate jargon, I needed to learn the language because it was my responsibility as a person who was interviewing for a job to be able to connect the dots for them. So you're talking about hiring and an interview process. I understood my responsibility as an interviewee. They didn't have the context of understanding the industry I was coming from. So I needed to learn their industry and then paint the picture for them that I could be successful in their sphere of influence. And so she helped me figure out how to learn the language so that I could paint the picture in the interview process. And the byproduct of her coaching me to see the expansiveness of my skill set was the realization that I was already doing the work of diversity and inclusion as a consultant in my community. I was already doing the work of diversity and inclusion as a consultant at Cornell for different departments. And so I had the aha eureka moment, like I'm already doing this work. I just need to name the business, register it officially so I could start charging people instead of working for free. That's how the business came to be. And so the byproduct of the career coaching was not only rebranding my skill set for a different sector, but also branding the work that I was already doing in a
Wow.
volunteer capacity, in an entrepreneurial capacity, because I had the skill set, I had the experience. I just needed to package it so other people could see that they needed to pay me for that work.
Yeah. And it's so cool that you come up with that. And like we just said, we see businesses all the time that may have a owner that's very ambitious,
Mhm.
a great idea. That person may have a great product or a great service, but hiring the wrong people can make or break a business.
Yes.
So that's something that you really focus on and consult businesses about is, writing a job description that makes sense.
Yeah,
Have our organizational chart. Hold on.
sure.
The bell got me. The organizational chart has to make sense. The chain of command. People need to know what they're applying for, so
Mhm.
that way, after they interview, oh, you didn't tell me that.
Mhm.
Everything is very clear. Everything is very professional. And then look for the right people. Know how to filter applicants, and when they come in, know how to interview them. And that, hiring the right team is a big part of making a business successful.
Yes, indeed. And so I'll elaborate a little bit on that thinking because I have a number of years of experience as an employee and an entrepreneur about vetting a potential applicant for entry into your organization. And one of the first things that's really imperative for the employer, the institution, the hiring manager, is to have clarity on why you are filling the role.
There you
What
go.
mission, what is the goal, and in the process of seeking clarity is not about filling a position simply because you have a vacancy. A strategic hiring manager is going to consider the mission and the goals of that team, and if there are current members on the team, they're going to do an assessment of the current skill set of the people on that team and then say what's missing, what are the gaps, who's not represented, what perspective could add value to the overall mission of the team. And then they're going to make sure that when they are looking for a candidate, they're not looking to hire the people this like sameness. They're not going to look to duplicate skills that are already on the team. They're going to look to hire someone that has skills that can close the gap. That's what a smart hiring manager does. What often happens in the workplace, however, is people just rinse and repeat the same job description and look to replace the skill set of the person who vacated a role. And that might not be what is needed in this season
Absolutely.
of work within an
Absolutely.
organization. So before you write any job description, you need to be clear on your missions and you need to be clear on what skill set will add the most value to help complete your team in order to achieve your team goals. And from that perspective, the next thing you need to throw out is uh, mandatory minimums. Like it's good for people to have years of experience in a given field or area. It's good for people to have knowledge capacity, whether it's certifications, trade school, degrees. But sometimes we get caught up in the shiny titles that are impressive on paper, where somebody went to a college, what their title is. Those things are important only if and when they have the capacity to transfer the knowledge and the experience they've gained prior to working in the organization into the behaviors and the tasks that they deliver on after you hire them. So once you have clarity on your mission and your goal, and you have clarity on the talents and skill sets that you're missing in that interview process, you want to craft questions that will give the interviewer an opportunity to give you real examples of their real experiences
There
with
you go.
bullet points that they've included on their resume. Don't look for the shiny responses. Look for them to tell you about what happened, what they learned, and what, if anything, they might do differently if they had an opportunity to go back. Because sometimes things don't always go well, and you want an interviewee who can talk about things that may not have gone the way they planned, but what they learned in the process. You want to be able to hire someone that demonstrates the capacity to learn, to demonstrate. And this is another thing you want to look for that may not be explicit is these characteristics about how they show up in terms of their values. Like, are they teachable? Are they willing to admit and when they make a mistake and take ownership and responsibility of those decisions? Are they willing to be a team player? And what exactly does that mean? Are they willing to step up and say, "Hey, this might not be within my scope of responsibility today, but I do have capacity this month." this, this quarter where I can lend a hand. You want people who are willing to demonstrate their capacity to be collaborative and their capacity to work individually. So you design questions in your interview process to make sure you give the interviewee an opportunity to tell you the experience that make them shine most in the process. When I was a hiring manager at a previous corporation, and I was building my team for D&I, there was one question that I always asked all of the people that I interviewed because it was a fair question. Everybody got asked the same questions because it was a standardized process. I went through the process that I've described for you in terms of having clarity on the mission and the goals, in terms of writing the job description and the interview questions. But one of my final open-ended questions was, is there anything that I have not asked you that you would like to share with me about why you're interested in this role?
Man,
Because
that's good.
that is a fair question because people get nervous in the interview process. Sometimes people come prepared with their bullet point stories that they want to tell you about how exceptional they are, but then the interviewee asks questions that don't really leave an opportunity for them to give their rock star story. So I always ask every candidate, is there anything you want to share with me about why you're interested in this role and about why you're the best candidate? Open-ended, just open-ended. And I leave space for them to share. And it was always very telling when some candidates were just like, no. It's kind of like
Oh,
that was my response internally. Like really, like please tell me more. Like this is your chance to tell me any and everything about why you're exceptional. And then, of course, I gave them an opportunity to ask me questions because every interview process should be two-way. When you are interviewing for a job, and this is speaking directly to your students, you should come prepared and have clarity on what it is that you hope to gain from this opportunity, so that you can vet them appropriately. I told a woman in South Africa who mentioned that she was looking at applying for some jobs in the US. But she was like, I'm not sure. I said, just apply. Because the reality is like you can't turn down a job that you don't have, which means if you don't get the offer, you don't have the job. And you can't really make an informed decision about whether you truly want that job until you get the offer so that you can make questions. So the interview process is really just the process of gathering data. And the first step in the process is to apply. If they vet you and they give you an opportunity to interview, they have questions for you. You should have questions for them so that you can continue in the data gathering process to make an assessment about whether you really want that opportunity. That is the purpose of an interview process.
yeah, I'm gonna get on my soapbox real quick, and I'm gonna get to their questions
Mhm,
because we don't talk about this aspect of it as much in this class, but I do in other classes. But realistically, before you are the person doing the interview, you're gonna be the person being interviewed.
mhm.
And when somebody that is interviewing you asks you, "Do you have any questions?" The answer never, ever, 0% of the time is no. You should have something every single time. You should have three or four.
Yep,
And that is just my absolute pet peeve and soapbox that I will die on. Everybody, when you walk into the interview, have questions ready.
yep,
So it is amazing how that small of a mistake can cost you a job.
indeed. So yeah, I'm excited to answer questions from your students. So please.
Yeah, and I've got some good ones, and I'll let you know some of their business concepts that they've come up with as well.
Okay, great.
Um, uh, okay, I like this one. This is Quenisha Kennedy. She's in 11th grade. She has a cool concept for a female-owned
Mhm.
car detail
Ooh.
uh, car detail shop, and she asked, "What was the main thing that gave you the idea to come up with this business?"
As I mentioned before, I was already doing the work. So there were skill sets that naturally emerged in terms of my level of awareness when I was speaking to that coach. I was drawn to the work and still continue to be drawn to the work that I do because I care about people, and I care about workplace environments in terms of cultivating leaders and offering strategic guidance to enhance and improve the culture and ways of working within a given organization. And because I realized when I was working with that coach that that's something that I had been doing organically for the past 10 years, it made it very simple to simply sit down and think about, well, what do I want to name my business? and how do I want to describe the skill set that I've cultivated in my career over time. So, if she's already in the process of detailing cars, really at this point is what do you want to name your business? Name the business so that you
Yeah.
can describe effectively what it is that you're already doing, and then look at other companies
Yeah.
to see what they charge, so you can have an idea of what you want to charge for your services so
There
that
you
you
go.
become a competitor.
Yeah, and I'm glad you mentioned earlier too about mission and goals. 'Cause they've all written mission and vision statements. They've all gotten organizational charts, and they've all got business names as well. So I agree
Excellent.
100%. That is the first steps. I like this one. This is Jameer Mayfield. He's in 11th grade. Member of our drumline here at Velma Jackson, has a really cool concept for mobile barbecue that also feeds the homeless. Really, really cool social entrepreneurship idea. And this is a great question. He asked, how do you handle budget and financial concerns that you might not have had training on before?
Oh, again, I am a forever student. And so when it comes to understanding the finances and the business of running a business, two things will always be true. It costs money to make money. And so you have to accept that reality that sometimes you have to invest in your business before you begin to turn a profit. And so one of the things that I have learned in the process of just becoming an entrepreneur is the importance of taking advantage of workshops and certifications, things that are offered by your like local banks or coaching programs, just to see and learn pitfalls from other entrepreneurs. There are lots of free things, community-oriented things, again, like from credit unions and even some of the larger banks and small, the local small business bureaus and those kinds of things, where you can learn about the finances that are required to run a business. But again, it costs money to make money. So I'm this and that. I am a CEO of my business, but I'm also still an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
And there's nothing wrong with being both, because I believe in having multiple streams of income, as you all should as well.
Yeah, and it really is, you can be great at what you do, but those skills at some point, it's two separate skill sets, but it definitely can be done. All right, I got time for two more. This is Tredarius Quinn. He's in 10th grade, also on our drum line here at Velma Jackson, has already started operating his own clothing line.
Mhm.
And he asked, what has been the biggest challenge you faced as an entrepreneur?
Mm. I would say because I built my business officially launched it during COVID. It was challenging to figure out what next. So, like, I decided, I'm going to pivot into a new career as an employee, and now I have this business, but we're all, social distancing, etc. And so I had to get over the idea that all of my business would come word of mouth, and that the people that I had already worked with would sing the praises of my skill sets and more business would come. I had to learn how to talk to strangers and how to
There
network
you go.
in a virtual context.
There you go.
The fact that we have the opportunity to be here right now is because of how you found me on LinkedIn. And so I made some decisions about which social media platforms I would increase my activity on. And I learned how to do cold networking, not for the purpose of asking anything other than connecting with people who were doing work that I wanted to admire from a distance and engage with, and potentially at some point maybe have a virtual chat and a conversation with, but learning to talk to strangers and understand that people would be willing to talk back and share their wisdom with me was something that probably one of the biggest hurdles in that context, because I wasn't thinking as an entrepreneur when I became an entrepreneur. At that time, I was still an employee and thinking with the mindset of an employee. It took me about a year, even though I made myself a
There
CEO.
you go.
It still took some coaching and encouragement from other entrepreneurs to say, no, you are what it is that you say you are. You just need to accept it. And so I had to find communities where I could get that encouragement.
I love it. All right, I got one more. This is Aaliyah Clay. She's in 9th grade. Has a really cool nonprofit concept for childcare for single mothers.
Oh,
that focuses on ELA and speaking and writing skills. Really, really interesting. But she asked, "What's your biggest motivation to continue to grow this business?"
I love working with people. There is never a dull moment in the nature of the work that I do, because my work is people centric. The reason that I've had the ability to have the variation in the industries that I've worked in, pivoting from higher education to aerospace, to the video game company, all while also building my business, where my business works with people in higher education. I've worked with folks in aerospace. I partner with folks in nonprofit, is because wherever you have an organization, or a workforce, you have people. And I study people. I study people in a global context. I get to travel around the world. One of my personal mottos is, that I think we all have a responsibility to infuse peace, into our piece of the world. And so I take that responsibility by traveling the world, by learning about other people's cultures and how they make meaning of their piece of the world based on where they were born and in their proximity to the equator. And then I learn to respect other people's cultures, right? And so I take my observations and where I might see an opportunity to create efficiencies or close gaps, I offer those recommendations humbly. And so it's my approach to the work that I think is the thing that allows me to continue to build connections with people around the globe, because I come with the perspective of adding value, to shared common goals to support people while they're trying to build a business, work on achieve a mission, etc. So it's the
Love it.
people for me. It's always has been and will continue to be the people.
And I think we've come to learn that any business you do have, if you make it about the people, the money comes. If
Exactly.
if if you if you're in it for the money, you're not going to last long. But if you're in it, the passion for the people and the community you serve, it is amazing how successful those businesses become.
Mhm.
Well, we're almost out of time, and we thank you so much for taking some time for us. But a couple things before we go: theoriaandpraxis.com is all of your content. That's where you can get the book Cultural Competence as well as the workbook there. And like you said, the book's taking off. People are getting it. Really interesting stuff that an entrepreneur could use, or even if you just want to build your own personal brand.
Exactly.
Really, really cool stuff to understand cultural issues, how to navigate that space and be successful. So as we wrap up here, as these kids start making decisions as they graduate high school to do whatever path they choose, because like we said, we've already got some already operating small businesses before they ever graduate.
Thank
So
you.
why is it so important to understand that the team they surround themselves with is
Mhm.
so important to their success?
The people that you surround yourself with absolutely have the ability to influence your mindset and your aspirations just as much as you are influencing those people. Remember that separate and apart from any credentials you earn or any title you may hold, you are a leader and you have a sphere of influence. And
There you
so you
go.
have a responsibility to audit the people within that sphere, who may be influencing you and to what degree you are influencing others in a positive way. And so you should, at every season in your life and in your career, pause for a moment to reflect on who you're surrounding yourself with. And just like I mentioned in the interview process, where a good manager does an assessment of the skill sets of their team and calibrates the talent, opposed to the mission, right? You in your life should have clarity on your goals and calibrate within your life who is speaking life into me so that I can achieve my goals, and who am I speaking life into so that they can achieve theirs.
Man, that's good. Well, we appreciate you so much for taking some time for us. Just it could not have been better timing with your topic and their project. So we just thank you so much for putting that on us today. But again, my friend Dr. Theoria Cason, all the way from Savannah, Georgia, home of Forrest Gump. We thank you so much for taking some time for us today.
It's been my pleasure. Thank you for having me. Enjoy the
All right,
rest of
talk
your
to you
day.
soon.
All right, bye bye.